Single millionaire mother sees black waiter teaching her autistic son to speak. What she does next changes her life forever. Get that man away from my son now. Caroline's voice cut through the refined air of the Elysium restaurant like a sharp knife. People turned. Forks paused in mid-air. The soft piano music stopped. At the most expensive table near the giant window, a tall, elegant woman in a silver dress stood, pointing angrily. Her eyes were wide with fury. Her lips trembled. Beside her sat a little boy, around 7 years old, with dark brown hair and scared eyes. His name was Liam. He was banging his head on the table and crying loudly. His small hands were clenched into fists. The light above flickered, making the moment feel frozen. Kneeling beside Liam was a young black waiter in a yellow shirt and white apron. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't yelling. Instead, he was drawing something on a white napkin with a black pen. Everyone waited. Caroline's hand shook as she grabbed Liam's arm. "Liam, stop it. Please. Mommy's here." But Liam didn't stop. His whole body was shaking. The boy hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not even one word. Caroline had taken him to the best doctors, spent millions on therapy, and still, nothing. The waiter didn't speak to Caroline. He didn't look up at the angry faces around them. He just kept drawing circles, then triangles, then squares. Over and over. Slow and calm. Square. Then he placed the pen gently in front of Liam. Liam suddenly stopped crying. His eyes locked on the napkin. "Circle," Liam whispered. The restaurant gasped. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. She stepped back as if someone had hit her in the chest. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice shaking. Liam looked at the waiter. Then he pointed. "Circle," he said louder. Then, "Triangle, square." Again. The waiter gave him a soft smile. "Good job, buddy," he said kindly. Tears streamed down Caroline's cheeks. She had waited 2 long years to hear her son speak. Now, in the middle of a fancy restaurant, a waiter had done what expensive doctors couldn't. But she didn't know what to do with the feelings crashing inside her. Shock, anger, guilt. She snapped again. "Who gave you permission to touch my child?" "Ma'am, I just saw a child in pain," the waiter said, standing up slowly. He wasn't trying to be bad. He was overwhelmed. "I used a visual pattern. Many kids with autism." "Are you a doctor?" Caroline snapped. The waiter didn't answer. He gave Liam one last smile and walked away toward the kitchen. "Manager!" Caroline shouted. "I want that man fired. This is completely unprofessional." The manager came rushing out, sweating. "I am so sorry, Ms. West. I'll handle it right away. Please just sit down. Let me get you some sparkling water." But Caroline didn't sit. She stared at her son, who was still looking at the napkin, now smiling and drawing the same shapes with his finger. Then she noticed something. The waiter, what was his name? Had left something on the table. Small card. Caroline picked it up with shaking hands. Dr. James Bennett. PhD in behavioral neuroscience. Child communication specialist. Her knees nearly gave way. "Doctor," she whispered. "PhD." Later that night, Caroline sat alone in her huge office overlooking the city skyline. The lights of her glass towers twinkled like stars. Her company, Collins Enterprises, had built half the city. People called her the Ice Queen, smart, rich, and cold. But tonight she felt something break inside her. She stared at the card. "Why would a man like him be working as a waiter?" she muttered. Her phone buzzed. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned to look at the security footage she had secretly requested from the restaurant. There it was, James kneeling, drawing shapes, and Liam speaking. She played it again and again. Caroline pressed her hand to her mouth and whispered, "What did you see in my son that I didn't?" Then she made a decision. "Find him," she told her assistant the next morning. "The waiter. James Bennett. I want to talk to him." "But ma'am." He quit. After the incident. Left no forwarding address. Caroline's heart dropped. "Find him anyway," she said. "This isn't over." Meanwhile, in a small, quiet apartment across the city, James Bennett was watching something else. Old files, hospital notes, and blurry documents marked confidential. His tiny living room was filled with open folders and medical charts. In the middle of it all was a picture of a young man. His brother Daniel. Smiling. James stared at the picture and whispered, "I won't let them hurt another child." He reached for a file labeled Liam West. Inside were treatment notes from Horizon Clinic, the same clinic that had killed his brother with untested medicine. James clenched his jaw. "I need to get closer." He glanced at his phone. A message popped up, unknown number. "We need to meet. My son needs you. Caroline West." James took a deep breath. "It begins," he said. Caroline West sat in her shiny black car outside a small apartment building. She wore a dark suit and sunglasses, but she wasn't there for business. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tight. Her heart beat faster than usual. She wasn't used to waiting. People usually waited for her. But today she was waiting for him, the man who helped her son speak. A door opened and James Bennett stepped out. He wasn't wearing his waiter clothes. He wore a clean blue shirt and dark jeans. He looked surprised to see her. "Dr. Bennett," Caroline said, stepping out. "You found me," James replied. His voice was calm but firm. "I had to. You did something incredible with Liam." "Hey, I need your help," she said quietly. James didn't move. "Why now?" "Because no one else could do what you did," she whispered. James folded his arms. "It's not magic. It's understanding. Your son was never broken. He just needed someone to listen." Caroline looked down. "I'm listening now." There was silence. Then James finally said, "All right, but I need full access to his medical records." Caroline hesitated. "Those are private. I need to know what treatments he had. Everything. Especially anything from Horizon Clinic." Her eyes widened. "How do you know about that?" James didn't answer. Caroline sighed. "Fine. I'll send everything to you today." That night, James sat in his small living room again. But this time Liam's files were open in front of him. He scanned through test results, therapy notes, and doctor comments. Something wasn't right. "Here it is," he muttered. "Protocol 7G. Project Chrysalis." He flipped to another file. His brothers. Same codes. Same drugs. Same doctors. James stood up furious. "They're testing on kids again. And she doesn't even know." At her giant office, Caroline sat with a laptop, watching old videos of Liam as a baby. He used to laugh so much. He'd clap, dance to music, and say "Mama" every morning. Then slowly that stopped. She had taken him to Horizon Clinic when he was 5. They promised new, powerful treatment. They said he would speak again. That he'd be fixed. But after weeks there, Liam became quieter. Then completely silent. Caroline had believed it was just the autism getting worse. But now doubt crept in like a shadow. Her phone rang. "Come to my apartment," James said. "Now." Caroline sat on a small couch as James held up 2 charts. "This one," he said, "is Liam's brain scan before Horizon Clinic. This one is after." The second scan had darker areas, damage. "They told me he'd get better," she whispered. "They lied," James said coldly. "Project Chrysalis is a secret program. They're using children to test brain drugs. Your company funds them." Caroline stood, her face pale. "I didn't know." "But you own them," James replied. "And they ruined my brother's life. Daniel was 12 when they gave him the same injections. He had seizures. He died 3 months later." Tears welled up in Caroline's eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." James looked away. "I quit everything after that. Teaching, research. I lost hope. But then I saw Liam. And I knew I had to fight again." Caroline sat down slowly. "Then let me help you." Help us, please. The next morning, James arrived at Caroline's home. Liam sat in his room, silent but calm, building towers with blocks. James sat on the floor beside him. "Hi, Liam," he said. "Can I build with you?" Liam didn't answer, but handed James a green block. James smiled. For the next hour they built towers and shapes. James didn't rush. He watched Liam's hands, his eyes, the way he grouped colors. Then, James picked up a napkin and drew a triangle. Liam looked at it. James drew a square. Then a circle. Then a smiley face. Liam smiled back. "Circle," he whispered. James nodded. "Yes." Then Liam whispered, "Happy." James blinked. "You feel happy?" Liam nodded. Caroline, watching through the glass door, gasped. "My baby." He's speaking again. Over the next few weeks, James visited every day. He didn't bring big machines or weird tools. Just paper, crayons, and puzzles. Liam started using colors to explain his feelings. Blue for sad. Red for angry. Yellow for excited. He also used numbers. 3 is safe, Liam said one day. James asked, "Why 3? Liam said, "Mommy, me, you." James smiled. Caroline stood frozen. Her cold heart slowly warming. But deep inside, fear still lived. Because she knew something James didn't. She knew why Horizon Clinic had used Liam. And if the truth came out, it could destroy everything. One evening, her friend Dr. Grace Whitman came over. Grace was a smart, kind woman who had worked with Caroline for years. Caroline showed her the files James had found. Grace turned pale. "Caroline, this is criminal. These are unapproved drugs. Experimental." Caroline whispered. "My company paid for this." Grace sat beside her. "Then we fix it. Together." "But the board, the investors, the press, none of them matter more than your son," Grace said softly. "Or the truth." Caroline stared out the window at Liam and James drawing chalk hearts on the patio. Her heart was breaking, but also healing. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. Grace put a hand on her shoulder. "Start by telling the world." The sun peeked through the tall windows of Caroline's mansion. Birds chirped outside, but inside the air was still. Caroline stood in the hallway, holding her breath as she listened. Laughter came from the garden. She walked quietly to the glass door and peeked through. James and Liam were lying on the grass, surrounded by colored paper and crayons. Liam was giggling, his hands covered in red and yellow chalk. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. Her son was happy. He was laughing. He was talking. "James," Liam said proudly, pointing to a picture he had drawn. "Look." The paper showed 3 stick people holding hands. One had brown hair like Liam. One had short black hair, James. The last had long golden hair like hers. James smiled. "Is this us?" Liam nodded. "Family." Caroline gasped quietly. For 2 years, Liam had barely looked at her. He had screamed, cried, and hid in corners. Now he called her part of his family. She stepped outside and knelt beside him. "Liam, do you really think we're a family?" Liam touched her hand. "Yes, Mommy." Caroline looked at James, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. "Thank you." James nodded but looked serious. "There's still more to do. Liam is just one of many." That night, James sat at his desk, clicking through files and watching old videos. One video showed his younger brother, Daniel, hooked up to wires in a hospital bed. "Do you feel any pain?" a voice asked. Daniel nodded slowly. James clenched his fists. He remembered the day they got the call. Daniel had collapsed. Then the seizure. Then the funeral. No one from Horizon Clinic said sorry. No one explained what went wrong. But now he had evidence. He had Liam's files. The secret codes. The drug names. And worse, Project Chrysalis was still running. James picked up his phone. "Caroline, we need to talk. I have a plan." The next morning, Caroline sat with James and Dr. Grace Whitman in her private study. James spread papers across the table. We can't just expose them quietly. They'll cover it up. We need to go public. Caroline frowned. You mean the news? No, James said. A live broadcast. From this house. With Liam. With me. With you. We tell the truth before they can hide it. Grace nodded. He's right. We go big or we lose the chance forever. Caroline looked afraid. I'll lose everything. My company. My reputation. James looked her in the eye. You already almost lost your son. She looked away ashamed. Then she nodded. Let's do it. The next week was a blur. Lights were set up in Caroline's grand living room. Cameras. Microphones. A large screen for showing documents and videos. Liam was excited. He helped James draw smiley faces and shapes on cue cards. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he was happy James would be on TV. Caroline sat in her room every night, practicing her words. She looked at old photos of Liam as a baby. Then she looked at her company's logo, Collins Enterprises. She whispered, "It's time to choose." Finally the day came. The broadcast began. Millions of people tuned in. Reporters whispered. Viewers paused their dinners. Phones buzzed. It was everywhere. On the screen, James stood beside Liam. My name is Dr. James Bennett, he began. I was once a leading brain researcher. I left after my brother died under Horizon Clinic's care, an organization secretly funded by Collins Enterprises. Caroline watched nervously from the side. They told us their drug would help Daniel, but it destroyed his brain. Just like it almost destroyed Liam's. James showed the medical scans, the secret documents, the test codes. Then he held up Liam's first drawing, the circle, triangle and square. This is how Liam learned to speak again. Not through pain, not through drugs, but through understanding. Then he paused. Caroline West didn't know what her company was doing. But when she found out, she didn't hide. She chose truth. And now she's here. Caroline stepped onto the stage slowly. The cameras turned to her. Her hands shook. I built a company that was meant to help families find homes. I didn't know we were hurting children. I was blind. But not anymore. I stand here today as a mother, not as a CEO. She looked at Liam. I choose him. The camera zoomed in on Liam as he smiled and held up a card he made. It read, Truth equals love. That night the world exploded. News channels played the video over and over. Parents cried. Scientists applauded. Horizon Clinic was under investigation within hours. Caroline's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors backed out. Board members quit. Reporters camped outside her gate. She lost millions. But when she tucked Liam into bed and he whispered, I love you, Mommy, she knew. She had won something greater. The next morning after the broadcast, everything changed. Caroline's mansion was surrounded by reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones pointed. Everyone wanted to know more about Project Chrysalis, about Liam, and about James. Ms. West, are the files real? Did you know your company hurt children? Is it true your son was part of an experiment? Caroline didn't answer. She simply held Liam's hand and walked him to the waiting car, her face calm, her eyes filled with quiet strength. Inside, Liam sat with a drawing in his lap, 3 hearts in a row. Above them were 3 names. Liam, Mommy, James. At the Horizon Clinic, alarms were ringing. Doctors were packing up files. The director was yelling into the phone. We need damage control now. Delete anything with Chrysalis on it. Do it now. But it was too late. By the time the sun rose, government agents had arrived. Computers were taken. Rooms were sealed. Horizon's secret was no longer secret. Families began calling. Parents who had children in the clinic started asking questions. What did you give my son? Why can't my daughter speak anymore? Was my child part of Project Chrysalis too? Meanwhile, at a quiet cafe in the city, James sat with Grace and Caroline. Papers were spread out across the table. "The broadcast went viral," Grace said, scrolling on her tablet. 10 million views in one day. Hashtags are trending. Everyone's talking. James nodded. "Good. Now they can't bury it." Caroline sipped her coffee, hands shaking. "I've lost everything. The company, the board. Investors left. My phone won't stop ringing." James looked at her gently. "You lost money. But you found your son." Caroline looked at him. Her voice was soft. "You're right. For the first time in years." He looks at me. He speaks. He laughs. Grace smiled. "And now we have to help others too." Later that week, James stood in front of a crowd at a small community center. Parents, teachers, and therapists filled the room. Many held notebooks. Others held tissues. James stepped to the front. "My name is Dr. James Bennett," he said clearly. "And I'm here to teach you how to listen." He showed drawings, simple shapes and color charts. He spoke about patterns, feelings, how autistic children sometimes talk with actions, not words. He shared Liam's progress, how he used numbers and colors to share his emotions. The room was silent, except for the sound of pens writing quickly. A woman in the front row raised her hand. "My daughter hasn't spoken in 3 years. Do you think she can learn again?" James nodded. "Every child is different. But every child deserves a chance. Real care, not experiments." The woman cried quietly. "Thank you." That evening, Caroline sat with Liam in the garden. The sky was pink with sunset. Liam held a small book of shapes and pointed to a red triangle. "Angry," he said. "Angry. Why are you angry?" she asked. He pointed to the page again. Then to himself. "Before." She understood. "You used to feel angry." He nodded. "Scared too. But now." He turned the page to a blue circle. "Safe." Caroline hugged him tight. "I'm so proud of you." Then Liam said something new. Something she had never heard before. "You didn't leave me." Caroline froze. He looked into her eyes. "You came back." Tears poured down her cheeks. "Yes, baby. Mommy came back." But not everyone was happy. The former director of Horizon Clinic, Mr. Langston, had gone into hiding. From a hotel room far away, he watched the news. "They're trying to ruin everything," he hissed. A younger man beside him said, "We still have files. We can defend ourselves." Langston shook his head. "Not if James keeps speaking. Not if that woman keeps helping him." He looked at his phone. "Find a way to stop the foundation. Or stop them." The next day, Caroline met with her lawyers. She was starting something new. "No more Collins Enterprises," she said firmly. "I'm starting a foundation. The Chrysalis Reborn Foundation. Will help families. Support real treatments. No lies. No secret programs." Her lawyer looked shocked. "You're giving up your empire." Caroline smiled. "No. I'm building something better." Meanwhile, James received an email from a school. "Can you visit our class? We have 5 students who don't speak, and we believe you can help." He turned to Liam. "Want to go help some kids?" Liam clapped. "Yes." They walked out hand in hand. That night, Grace came over with big news. "They've arrested 2 Horizon doctors. The program is shut down. Forever." Caroline stood silently for a moment. Then she whispered, "It's done." James placed his hand on her shoulder. "No. It's just beginning." They all looked at Liam, who was now drawing again. He showed them a picture, 4 people this time. Him, Caroline, James, and Grace. Above their heads was one word, team. 3 years later, the world looked very different. Where once the tall silver towers of Collins Enterprises stood, a new name now shone in gold across the glass building. The Chrysalis Reborn Foundation. Children laughed inside the building. Parents held hands with their little ones. Therapists and teachers smiled as they watched kids draw, build, talk, and play. Caroline West stood at the top-floor window, dressed in a simple white suit. Her hair was tied back, and in her eyes was peace, a peace she had never known before. She looked down at the courtyard where Liam played with two other children. They were blowing bubbles and laughing. A teacher stood nearby, watching gently. Behind her, James entered the room, holding a folder. "He solved the pattern faster than I expected," he said, smiling. Caroline turned. "He's been full of surprises." James walked over and stood beside her. "You did it, Caroline. You turned everything around." She shook her head. "We did it. Grace, Liam, all of us." Down in the therapy room, Liam sat at a small table with 4 younger kids. He showed them how to draw colored shapes to explain their feelings. "Red triangle is angry," he said softly. "But when you feel safe, you can make a blue circle. It helps." The other kids copied him. One girl smiled and whispered, "Blue circle." Liam grinned. "Good job." A therapist nearby wiped a tear from her eye. This was the boy who once screamed, who once couldn't speak, who once sat in corners alone. Now he was helping others. Later that afternoon, a big event was held at the foundation. The room was filled with families from across the country. Children sat beside their parents. Therapists, doctors, and teachers filled the chairs. Caroline stood on stage beside James and Grace. She took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. 3 years ago, I lost everything I thought mattered. Money, power, success. But in that loss, I found my greatest treasure, truth. She looked out at the audience. Many of you trusted Horizon Clinic. So did I. But we were misled. Our children were hurt. I let it happen without knowing. But now we choose to make it right. There was a soft murmur in the crowd. Nodding, tears, quiet claps. Caroline continued. The Chrysalis Reborn Foundation is here to heal, to protect, and to teach. No more secrets. No more harm. Only hope. The crowd clapped louder now. Then James stepped forward. There's no such thing as a broken child. Every child has a language. We just have to learn how to listen. He turned to Liam, who was seated in the front row. Liam taught me that. Everyone turned to look at Liam. He stood up slowly, holding something in his hands. He walked to the stage and gave the paper to his mom. Caroline opened it. It was a drawing. 3 people holding hands. Caroline, James, and Liam. Underneath was one word. Family. Caroline's voice trembled as she whispered into the mic. Family. She turned and looked at James. He reached out and gently held her hand. She smiled. The crowd stood and clapped, some wiping away tears, others cheering. The moment was real, raw, and full of light. After the event, as the sun set, Caroline, James, Grace, and Liam sat on a bench outside the building. The air was quiet. The sky was orange and pink. Caroline looked at Liam. Did you like today? He nodded. Yes. People were happy. James smiled. You made them happy. Grace leaned back. Who would have thought a meltdown in a restaurant would lead to all this? They all laughed. Caroline shook her head. I was angry that day. Angry, scared, and blind. James said softly. And now? She looked at her son. Now, I see everything. Liam leaned his head on her shoulder. You're my best friend, Mommy. Caroline closed her eyes. You're mine too. That night, as they walked toward their cars, Liam stopped and looked at the stars. James. Yes, buddy. Liam pointed up. Do you think Daniel is up there? James looked up at the stars, his eyes warm. I do. Liam smiled. I think he's proud. James swallowed hard. Me too. Caroline took both their hands. Let's go home. Epilogue. Across the world, more than 600 families had received help from the foundation. Children who had once been silent now had words, songs, colors, and hope. Parents who once felt helpless now felt strong. And at the heart of it all was a woman who gave up power for love, a man who turned grief into healing, and a boy who found his voice, and helped others find theirs too. From pain, healing began. From silence, a voice emerged. And from revenge, hope was born.